Everybody, welcome back to Drag Illustrated's The Racing Business with me, Jason Dukes of Captain's Chair Coaching. Once again, Drag Illustrated, The Racing Business is brought to you by Racers Club and Drag Illustrated. You can find it here on all the different Drag Illustrated podcast networks. Today's show, as always, is being produced by JT Murderchunder Hudson. So excited about today's show, so excited about today's guest, so excited to bring you the life of a person who I think is really a racer, but is a racer in the racing business and just all of the different things. Today's guest, and we'll bring him on in a second here, but today's guest is Mike Ashley. And you probably, depending on how long you've been a racing fan or in the racing business, know him from one or two or probably seven different things. So I've known of Mike for a long time and recently have a better relationship with him. But Mike is a racer, huge pro mod racer of the past, race winning driver and champion, also Top Fuel Funny Car race winner, and now dad of Top Fuel driver Justin Ashley is the father. And the other thing that you should know about Mike is he's a deal maker. He puts things together like most racers, puts things together for himself and for his family. But one of the things that I admire about Mike, and we'll get into some of the stories, is that he also puts deals together for people, for other people, or people that he considers family. One of the big things that he did in life was, with Antron Brown's team and some things there, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. One other thing to mention about Mike, I had a chance to interact with Mike, and he's an amazing family man. And so want to bring on Mike Ashley and talk about the life of Mike Ashley and talk about Mike Ashley as a racer and a person in the racing business. So, Mike, how's it going, brother?
Wow, that was some introduction. I feel like I got a lot to live up to now.
Well, I mean, you already lived. Like, I don't know that you have to live up to it. You already did it. That's almost like it's almost like what, I don't mean to be morbid, but it's like one of those obituaries where it's like, dude, you already did it. Like that was.
I appreciate that. Well, look, first of all, it's an honor to just be on the show and be involved in one of Wes Bug's many successful shows that he does. I mean, he's just been growing Drag Illustrated. It's been fun kind of watching him do that. But yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell us, where did this start? Like, who's Mike Ashley? Like, where do you get the racing bug? Like, you're a dude from, I'm from.
Everybody asked me that.
What's that?
I said, everybody asked me that question. It's like, you're from New York and you're like Jewish. Like, why do you race cars?
Well, I get it. I'm a black dude. I'm a black dude from New Jersey, right? So it's like, how did it happen? Like, I'm actually interested. How did that happen?
It's really not a long story. It's really kind of, my nature, I've always been a competitive person, always. And, and I've always loved cars. For some reason, like just from growing up, I've always loved cars. And so when you put the two of those things together, competitive and cars, I just wound up loving race cars from the very beginning. When I was in high school, I kind of got involved like in auto shop a lot. And started to, work on cars. And before you know it, I had a street car. And, back then we maybe used to race a little bit around, not on the racetrack. I don't know, blah, 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 blah. But somehow now those guys are all famous on Discovery Channel. But I got involved in a little bit of kind of like, let's say, off-track racing, I guess you would call it. Mm-hmm. That was really competitive. And I raced with a lot of great people whose names I won't mention that are from Long Island. Like John Pacino, I won't mention him. John Nobile, but those guys didn't race on the street. Anyway, I just kind of got involved in racing and got caught up in the whole thing with guys, honestly, like John Pacino, John Nobile, We had a friend back then, Bobby Lasordo, like an amazing guy who taught me so much. And we had a local track out here in the Hamptons that unfortunately we lost, and we really need to put a racetrack back out here again. And I used to go to the Hamptons and, just kind of work my way up from like a 13-second car, 14-second car, whatever, to all of a sudden I remember the first time I went in the nines, I was like, oh my God, I made a 9-second run. And before you know it, I was racing. So kind of just loving it.
Nice. Well, so how, take me from the just racing and loving it to Pro Mod.
I was fortunate enough to grow up in an era where I think Pro Mod was just awesome. It was just, and not that it's not awesome now, it is. But back then before it was Pro Mod, it was Top Sportsman. And it was just run what you brung and hope you brung enough. And it was so much fun and so exciting. I kind of remember, so there was a local racer, Bobby Lasorda. He had a car. It was called the Enforcer, his Thunderbird. It was just a beautiful car. He was racing Top Sportsman with it. And I was fortunate enough to be able to become friends with Bobby, and I bought that car from him. I changed the name of that car to Knockout. And then it was my first Lenco car. He taught me how to drive, and I was lucky to just be able to learn from him. And so I took that car, and I remember I took it to Darlington, and I was running it in like Super Comp or something in Darlington, just my first time out with it. And Bill Coleman was there that night, and it was the time that the first 200-mile-an-hour run ever run by a door slammer, and it was like insane. It was at night. It was at Darlington. It was so exciting. It was like, oh my God, I love this. I need to do this. And so racing, it motivated me so much to build my business. Like, I think my business, anything that I've been successful in business in my early years, was because I loved racing so much, and I needed to be able to earn the money to be able to go racing. So I didn't mind working around the clock, literally, to earn money to be able to race. And so then I wound up taking that Thunderbird into Top Sportsman, competing in quick eights and stuff like that. And that was fun. And then I eventually I just made the leap. I ordered a car from Jerry Haas. It was a brand new Top Sportsman car. I remember ordering a trailer from Gold Rush, and I said, oh my God, I made it. I got a Jerry Haas car and a trailer from Gold Rush. And it was, and I had a dually with a sleeper in it. And I would just drive that thing barnstorming all over the place. And so, it was great. And, I joined the United States Super Circuit. That in itself is a whole story. I don't know if you remember the USSC.
No, I don't. What years? What years was
so that was in 1988. Okay. And that really kicked off the whole kind of Pro Mod show before it became Pro Mod. It was like a 8-car race where people, we would just show up with Top Sportsman cars back then. It was like run what you brung, and we had Rob Vandergriff was with his 57 Chevy. I was there with my car. Scott Shafroff was there with his car. Animal Jim, he was there with his car. And it was just this great, exciting show. And, from then, that USSC show was so popular amongst the tracks, it would pack the fans in. People would show up, and it would be packed, and it would be insane. And cars kind of all over the racetrack. Not that I ever drove all over the racetrack, but whatever. And cars all over the racetrack. Fans got all excited. And I think that really was the impetus that drove IHRA to create Pro Mod in 1991 as an actual professional class. And so I was fortunate enough to be involved in Pro Mod in the very beginning in 1991 in the first year. In fact, I qualified number 1 at the first race for Pro Mod. So, that was great. And then I think I came in second, in that first year in the early 90s. But just a great class, great time. And that's basically kind of how I got involved in racing.
Gotcha. Well, I have two business questions related to that. One, you talked about the why and the motivating factor of your business, and I talk to a lot of people about that. Like I see them, either dragging their feet or procrastinating in their business, and it's like, well, really develop a why and make that why like big enough, and you'll start doing the business stuff.
Well, I agree. I mean, it's like I tell people all the time, like I say to them, let's just call it units. Can you sell this many units? Let's call it 20 units by the end of the month for the month. Can you sell 20 units for the month? When typically they would do, let's say 5. I say, can you do 20? I say, no way, it's impossible. I say, it's really impossible for you to do that? And they say, it's impossible. I mean, maybe if I push really hard, I could get to 8 if I work day and night and this and that. And I say to them, well, let me ask you a question. What if I wrote a check here for $2 million? And I said, if you do 20 units between now and the end of the month, this $2 million check is yours. I say, well, that's a different story. If that was the case, I said, well, that's a different story. If that was the case, I said, well, what would you do then? How would you make it happen? Well, I would do this. I would do that. I would do this. I would do that. I would go here. I wouldn't. I'd work through the night. I would contact this person. I would contact that person. I said, well, there you go. You got your plan to do 20 units. Just go and do it, which makes your point. The why. The why has to be big enough. You see, when I made it based on a $2 million check, guess what came out? Their plan on how to make it happen, right?
Right.
Because the why was big enough, and that's a really good point. And so for me, my why was really racing. I loved racing, and so for me, that was a big part of growth in my business back then. When I was younger.
Nice. And you talked about barnstorming around the country with the Top Sportsman thing, which turned into ProMod. But was it just you barnstorming by yourself, or was that like your first experience of building a racing team?
So that's a great question. It was my first experience of really building a race team, and it was me and 2 other guys that I had. This guy Mike Brown and this guy Brian Winkler. We raced together. We were like the dreamers. Nobody thought we could do what we set out to do. Which is a recurring story for you all throughout life,
huh?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I live my life believing that, first of all, I'm very spiritual. I believe in God, and I believe everything is possible. Everything. And it's just a matter of, what it takes to be able to make those things that you want to make happen, happen. And so we were the big dreamers during that time period, me and these 2 guys. And we got ourselves aligned with a guy, Scott Shafaroff, who's currently in the engine business around and popular. Just a great guy who kind of tutored me and taught me and showed me the way to do things. And from there, we just kind of, that whole, I think everything is possible. Back then we had a second nitro system. And, I was told, Scott told me, you don't hit that second nitro system until 3rd gear. When you pull 3rd gear, you hit that system. And I think the fastest speed ever run at that time was like 201 or something. And I don't know. I was always a drive by the seat of your pants driver. I left the starting line. It was in 1st gear. It felt good to me. So I just hit the second system. Pulled 2nd gear. I went 211 miles an hour. I shattered the record by 10 miles an hour. I was like, you're not supposed to do that. I'm like, looks good to me.
It worked.
Engine looks good. Computer looks good. Everything looks good. So like I said, to me, I think, kind of everything is possible. You just got to have, like you say, kind of like a big why.
Yeah. So tell us how it I mean, my Mike Ashley experience started in as a fan, started IHRA and then ADRL. Take us from the beginning of IHRA up to that point.
What happened is, look, I'll tell you. What happened is that the class, once it became pro, it became much more serious. When I say serious, I mean there was much more competition. And so, of course, when you have much more competition, everybody needs to do better. Everybody wants to do better. That's what competition is incredible. Competition is a great blessing because what it does is it drives everybody to be their best and to do their best. And so, along with being your best and doing your best comes money. You need to have money. So it wasn't always just, it got to the point where it wasn't just about, working hard in business and building a business. It was about also getting sponsors and raising money, which is a major part of racing. I mean, racing is a business, and sponsors are critical when it comes to racing. And so for me, I'd say the next big step that I made was being able to get what I would consider a major sponsor in 2003. Is when I really had my first kind of what I would consider a major sponsor, where it was like, honestly, it was like $200,000 for a Pro Modify car at that time. And that was major funding for us. That really helped us to grow our program. We were able to take that money, invest in parts and pieces, invest in testing, try so many things that just were horrible and just were horrible, literally, and didn't work.
Right.
But we learned through process of elimination what did work.
Right.
And the two things that I took away from kind of that was I need to be able to figure out a way to get sponsors. I need to figure out a way to raise money for this race team, because if we don't have proper funding, we're never going to be able to compete, where we want to compete. And for me, I've always had this inner feeling. I've ingrained it in my son. I've ingrained it in every team that I've ever owned or operated. When I pull in the gates of a race, I expect to win every single round. I expect to win qualifying. I expect to win every elimination round. I expect to win every single round. And if we don't win, something went wrong. And for me, losing is the most important part of learning how to win. Anytime that we lose, it's a learning experience. Why did we lose? Why did we not go down the racetrack? For me, when I owned the teams and I was running the teams and I was driving, what could I do to improve as a driver? What could we do to improve as a team? And I know it sounds kind of weird, but the expect to win philosophy was, although we expected to win, it wasn't high pressure. I know it sounds crazy, like it doesn't go together, but it does. All I asked anybody who ever worked with me on any of my teams was, I always said the same thing. If you're here, it's because I believe in you. All I want from you is to do your best. And if that means that we smoke the tires every run, or we shake the tires, or we don't get down, I'm okay. As long as you tell me you did your best to win the race. I don't want anybody to go up there and race out of fear that I'm going to be upset or we're going to lose because of something they're doing. I don't care. I want to play on offense all the time. I want you to go out and do your best. And as long as you do that, I'm good. So it was kind of those two things that helped us a lot to be successful. It was having that expect to win mentality and actually applying that expect to win mentality in raising money, in sponsorships and the whole sponsor game has changed so much over the years. The value that you need to provide for a sponsor has changed so significantly. As I've grown myself from kind of the late 90s all the way to right now, just as Justin's father, which is my new official title, and my role on his team. So yeah, it's the whole game has changed so much. So yeah, it's about building a successful team, and that means the team, the crew, the driver, and your ability to deliver for sponsors.
Yeah. Well, tell us about that first sponsor. It probably wasn't the first sponsor, but the first major sponsor, the $200,000 deal. How did that deal come about? How did you provide value for those guys?
Yeah, it was a great deal. That was back in the days when, I was working with Kenny Nowling, and I'm sure you know him.
Yeah.
And we ran into these guys. They owned a payroll, a PEO, a professional employer organization called Infinite. And I had just built my Willys, And we were looking for a sponsor, and Kenny had approached them, and we talked to them, and we sent them. I think it was PowerPoint back then. I don't even know what it was back then about kind of what the demographic was and how we could put the car on display and the kind of TV time that they would get. At that time, we were just getting into TV, and we had some light TV time and stuff like this. And now this is a good example. They really got into it because they loved racing, and honestly, they wanted to show off their name on our race car. They wanted to invite all their friends to the race. I'm still friends. One of the guys there, unfortunately, it was 3 people passed away. Richard Kirby, he was a great guy, but Chris Lane and Douglas Hasty, I'm still friends with those guys until today. And that relationship turned into something bigger. Initially, it was through their PEO, but they went out and loved cars so much, they actually partnered with Carroll Shelby to reproduce the Gone in 60 Seconds Eleanor 68 Mustangs.
Oh, wow.
67 Mustangs, 68. I think it's 67 Mustangs. I forget which year it was already. I'm getting so old. Mustang was such a cool car. And so we wound up getting sponsored the next year by Unique Motorsports and Carroll Shelby.
Oh, wow.
Which was really cool. And we had the first Mustang in Pro Mod. Tommy Mooney built it for us. And, Tommy Mooney, to me, best chassis builder when it comes to Pro Mod, and a great person. But he built that car for us. And I remember telling these guys, look, and at that time, so let's fast forward to that time. At that time, Chuck Ford was my crew chief. Absolute brilliant guy, genius, one of the best in the business. And I was racing at that time with this guy, Mark Atkins and Alan Atkins. And what we did together was just incredible. So first of all, I told these guys, look, when I called Chuck, I said, I spoke with Carroll Shelby and Doug and these guys, and I guaranteed them they're going to win a championship if they sponsor our car this year for Carroll Shelby. It's like, what? You did what? You guaranteed them that? I'm like, I absolutely guaranteed them that, and we're going to absolutely do it. I guaranteed it. And we have to do it. And so the funny thing is, those guys all like, Chuck was just starting off. He wound up now being like in the blower business. He's all his blowers. He's like the blower guy to the stars. Mark and Alan had just started their paint shop, and they started doing all these wild paint schemes for us, Illusions Custom Paint. And so it was fun because we kind of they grew their businesses together as we grew our race team, and we wound up actually winning the world championship that year.
Very cool.
It was funny when we won the championship, Carroll Shelby flew in by helicopter and was at the finish line when I was being interviewed by then ESPN. He just walked up behind me and surprised me.
Oh, wow.
It was great. Just couldn't write a better script. So you never know where sponsorships are going to lead. But sponsorships are different these days. They're not the same as they were back then.
Yeah. Well, one of the probably physically the first time that we interacted, and you probably don't even remember this or know this, and you'll probably wring my neck when I say it, but I was the track manager at Gateway when ADRL came, and we had all the timing issues because our timing system was underwater and kept getting struck by lightning. What a mess. But
things happen.
My experience there was that, at the time Gateway was run by Dover Motorsports. It was a publicly traded company. We pretty much had, I don't know why, but just bad business model. We had to run a drag strip by the books for a public corporation. And then, you guys come in, Kenny Nolan, Jeff Fortune, and, just thinking way outside of the box. And meanwhile, we're a track where it's like most of the things we did had to pretty much be inside the box because we're a public traded company. But
basically benign.
What's that?
Basically benign, vanilla, run of the mill.
Yeah. We had to be it. But I always admired the out of the boxness of the ADRL and just Pro Mod in general. Do you want to just talk about some of the business and the mentality of just Pro Mod during that time and just the out of the boxness of just creating stuff?
Well, I think what Kenny did was, again, this is what, when you say out of the box, Kenny created something that was totally out of the box and brilliant. And I had discussed it with him when he was doing it. We talked it over, and that was giveaway tickets. And, people say like, oh, you can't get, how do you make money if you give away tickets? Okay. But the bottom line is, first of all, he packed the place. There was more people at the ADR races than any other races. It was packed because the tickets were free. But the idea is you get tens of thousands of people in one venue. They're enjoying themselves. They're enjoying, the whole entertainment experience. But guess what? They're buying food. They're buying merchandise, right? They're paying for parking. And when you're done, I can promise you, you make more money doing business that way than you do charging people for tickets. So where, let's say you'll have 25,000 people pack a track because it's free, and they're all buying merchandise, buying sodas, drinks, food, all kinds of stuff, and paying for parking, versus having 5,000 people come. And those people are not spending even the same kind of money because they spent the money on the tickets.
Right,
So
right. And
I think-
5,000 people come and you have this whole year-long infrastructure to sell tickets to them rather than just, give the tickets out and come back. And, that was one of the things at Gateway, not to whatever, just Gateway. It was what it was. It was a publicly traded company, but it's like our infrastructure, like you said, was set up to be vanilla and stuff like that. And, Kenny came in and he's like, yeah, and I'll pay you by cash. And I'm like, I can't.
But you know what? That's the whole thing. Like, even today, okay, to be successful in business, if you want to have sponsors and you want to be successful, you've got to be open-minded. You've got to be flexible. You've got to be creative. You've got to find ways to evolve. You got to realize, iPhone 1 was a long time ago. We're on iPhone 14 right now. Right. That's 14 different versions of the iPhone. We can't be on racing 1. We've got to evolve. If we don't evolve, we're going to dissolve. And you're seeing that happening with racetracks going away and things happening that, look, of course, life is evolving. So tracts of land, there's more population, tracts of land, it's worth more money. So tracts are, being offered ridiculous amounts of money and stuff like this. But if we could handle racing the right way, right? Like, I have an idea for racing that I think would make a racetrack more valuable to the owner of the track than selling it to real estate. So like, and I've been saying this for a long time. Look, this is one creative idea. Here's just one creative idea. Okay. Merging demographics. Gambling is extremely popular. People like to gamble. Okay. Are you familiar with horse racing? I'm sure you are.
Yep.
People go, look at the Kentucky Derby, for example. Okay. But every day, all around the country, there are horse race tracks. People go there, they bet on the horse, they sit in the stands, they watch the race, and then they go back and they bet on the horse in the next race. Okay. We're set up for that.
Well, and almost the fact that
we're an instant gratification
Yeah.
sport, right? Cars run down the track, right? You go and you can bet on them. You can bet on where they're going to qualify. You can bet on what a driver's reaction time is going to be. You can bet on, are they going to win the round or not win the round? You can bet on like a parlay, combine who's going to win Pro Stack, who's going to win this, who's going to win that. And so the idea is, I just ask you this question. How many people are going to the horse races if there's no gambling?
Right. Yeah, no, but yeah.
I can guarantee you that you'll lose 90% of the people if they can't bet on horses. So what's getting them there? The gambling.
Yeah.
They're just betting on the horse. And look how big the Kentucky Derby is. So imagine if you can go to a race, right? We know what goes on in the stands all the time with each people. But what if you can go to a race and you could actually go to a legitimate betting area, bet, get your ticket, watch the race, cash it in as a winner or loser, then parlay it, bet again. And that keeps people busy in between rounds. You can actually have handicapping where you can handicap and all that. I mean, to me, that would bring racing to the next level.
Yeah.
Why?
Well,
because you would get the whole gambling demographic in that, and they'd be like, wow, this is the coolest thing. Gamble on race cars.
right.
I mean,
Well, and
so
then
for
in
me, I mean,
the
he's a way to
residual
do
of
it.
that is then they become race fans too. It's the same with me when I go to the horse track to gamble. It's like, oh wait, now all of a sudden I'm a horse fan out of nowhere. But
Right. And that's
JT,
what happens.
can you jump on here for a sec, JT? Uh, just there's
Yeah.
there's a company that's sponsored the World Series of Pro Mod, and I'll connect you guys, Mike, because I think they may is it Win Light Bet or what
Yep. Win Light Bets.
when Light Bets, yeah. There's a company out there. I don't know if you know about them yet, Mike, but I'll connect you guys because they're in the process of trying to look into this, and I think it would be
Pretty intriguing, yeah, how they're doing it in the process they're going through. Mike, you'd fit right in. You'd probably have a really great conversation with Mike, Chris, and Rex.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's a no-brainer. Everybody wins. I mean, that's how you can go to an NHRA race and the purses go from 50,000 to like they should be. They should be $250, $500, $1 million. Like
Absolutely.
golf.
Yes,
That's what it should be. And if you had gambling, that's what it would be.
yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
That's what
So-
we're gonna connect you with Chris and Rex. Absolutely.
That'd be great. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. But I'm just saying, it's just one idea. But the concept there is just thinking outside of the box. And
Outside the box, yeah.
unfortunately, when you think outside of the box, people go outside of their comfort zone. What happens? They get scared. They don't do it. And so for me, it's either, and I've taught Justin this over and over again, and my daughter, and it's either you evolve or you dissolve. Because if you don't do something to grow, you're gonna dissolve. That's the bottom line. So you can't be scared of it. You got to be scared of not evolving. You got to be scared of not trying to do things better. And that's in every part. And I'll just say in terms of racing, that comes from the crew chief, the crew, any crew chief who thinks, I know our crew chiefs don't, any crew chief who thinks, I got everybody covered, I'm done, I don't have to work on anything, he's in trouble by the next race.
By the next race, right? By the next round.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you got to do that.
Well, so speaking of evolution, I left Gateway in probably 04, 05 to go home to be with my dad, who was sick at the time. Actually, maybe a little bit later than that. But next evolution of you was then now all of a sudden you're in a fuel funny car. Like, talk about that evolution.
So, what happened was, I was talking to my sponsor at the time from Torco, and, I said to him, I think I really want to try this funny car thing. And he's like, yeah, if you want to try it, give it a shot. Why don't you jump into Creasy's car, see if you like it. And if you like it, then we could talk about it. I'm like, okay. So I had won already the first championship, and now he was sponsoring me, and we were on our way to winning the second championship. And so it was like, I got into Dale Creasy's funny car. And first thing is they belted me in, and I'm like, oh shit, I don't know.
Why is this engine on my lap?
This is kind of like, what am I doing? First of all, this is like so claustrophobic, right? Okay, so that was the first thing. But, once they put the body down, I was like, cool. I kind of like this. I like this. I do the burnout. I'm in Chicago, and I do the burnout, and I come back, and I'm backing up. I'm like, man, this is cool. I like this. I pull up to the light. The light drops, and I jam on throttle. I'm like, this is within less than a half a second. I'm like, this is not cool. I mean, basically, it put cylinders out right away. It shot right towards the wall because cylinders were out. To shut it off, you have to, shut off the fuel, which makes the car accelerate. I just missed the wall by like this. So it just like kind of shot towards the wall and then blew up. Like kind of like just pop fire. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to like this funny car thing. And I'm grateful, and I love Peanut, and I love Dale and everything. But that happens to any funny car. It could happen,
right?
And so I mean, it didn't blow the body off it, but for me, somebody who's brand new, first time in the car, right off the starting line, and a pop like that, I was like, I don't know, I got to think about this. So anyway, I actually spoke to Dale Worsham, who is one of the greatest people ever. I love Dale and his family. And Dale said, Mike, if you want to try that, why don't you try driving my car? And I was like, all right, so we were in Gateway actually. And I after I raced my Pro Mod car, I tried Dale's car, and I'm like, you know what? I like this. I think I can get into this. And so I told my Pro Mod team, don't worry, I'm never leaving Pro Mod. I'm going to do both. But somehow when the funny car, in fact, the front of my funny car said, "My other car's a Pro Mod," and it did. And I just got into funny car like that. I raced with Dell for about a half a year, and then I decided to make the switch over to Schumacher, and I went to Schumacher's, and I raced with him for like a half a year. And the team that was over there, Brian Karate was over there. So Mark Oswald was racing with Del Worsham. And when I was driving, Mark was one of the co-crew chiefs on my car. And when I went over to Schumacher for the second half, Brian Karate was there. And I loved Mark Oswald, and I loved Brian Karate at that time. And I thought, man, this could be a powerhouse team. I got a pretty good eye for talent. And Brian Karate had never even won a race before. Mm. And so I told these guys, look, I'm not cut to race under Schumacher's umbrella or whatever. Nothing with Don. It's just me. It was my problem. Mm-hmm. I said, so I got to have my own deal. I went to my sponsor. I said, look, can you give me my own deal? He said, yes. And I made a deal with Don. And so I actually started my own team with Brian Karate. And I asked Mark Oswald if he would come over, and it took him a little while, but then he decided he would. And so I put Mark and Brian together, and they were my crew chiefs. Nice. And it was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then, the first couple of races, we were like, and then all of a sudden it was like, we won Topeka. Then we won. And I told Brian and Mark the same thing. I told them, look, I don't care if we smoke the tires every run. I don't care what happens. All I want you to do is do the absolute best you can do. And as long as you do that, I'll be happy. Well, Brian never won a race until that point, but it wasn't long before we won. We won Topeka, then we won Norwalk, then we won Indy. And it was like, this was my first year as a team owner driver. And these were their first wins also. Mark Oswald has a storied career, obviously, but for Brian, and it was amazing. And then eventually I decided to get out of funny car. I was in the mortgage business, no secret. It was rough. I went through a rough time, and I decided
actually, but before we will get there. But before we get there, it was a lot of years there in a quick 3-minute summary. But a couple questions for you. Did you keep the Pro Mod team? If you didn't keep the Pro Mod team, what did you tell the people that? Because you said that you promised them that you were.
You're sorry. Right. It's a good question. That's a good question.
But then, and there's more. I'm a coach, right? And we're taught to not ask loaded questions with 3,000 questions. But I have so many questions of the getting in and out of relationship with Dale Creasy, the getting in and out of relationship with Worsham and his family, the getting out of relationship with Schumacher, and then also the building of your team. That's probably about 12 places where normal people stop.
Yeah, no, but I mean, look, you set a goal, you work backwards from a goal. So when I started this show, what I told you was I expect to win, period. So I have kind of these rules that I instilled in Justin when it came to racing, and they were my rules back then too. Safety first, fun second, then win. If you screw up that order, you're never going to win. So that's the bottom line. So if I wasn't safe, I wasn't going to do anything. Mm-hmm. And so if I wasn't having fun, I knew I wasn't going to go forward because I wouldn't win. And I needed to be able to win, because that's why I raced, was to be able to win. So when you look at, Dale Creasy, he just gave me an opportunity to try funny car to see if I would like it. So he did what he was supposed to do with me, and I did what I was supposed to do with him. And I was happy. There was never anything that was going to be a relationship beyond that. It was just Peanut, just Dale being a great guy and allowing me to drive his car. That's Dale. When I went to Dell, all I did was, I dropped the A and it became Dell. No, I'm just kidding. From Dell to Dell. But what I did was, when I went to Dell, Dell, I could see having a future with, because Dell was operating a competitive team and he had a second car, and I had funding lined up from my sponsor, and I liked Dell's operation. And I thought that, this could be something that could work for me. And I felt like Dell was a really good teacher, taught me a lot. Mm-hmm. And so getting together with Dell was good. But the problem is I wanted to surpass being just second fiddle to Dell. Dell's car was always going to be the best car. It's nothing against Dell whatsoever. He had Checker, Shuck, and Craig, and whatever it was back
Yep,
then.
I remember the
You know?
red and the blue car.
Yeah. And I was driving the other car, and I don't know, just honestly, I was just never good at being the other guy, you know?
Right.
So, and so I just felt like I kind of wanted more than that. And I really wasn't doing as well as I wanted to do. And so I was talking to my sponsor at that time, Evan, and he said, look, I have a relationship with Schumacher. I'm currently sponsoring a car for him, for Melanie Troxel. And, you know, if you want, you can go over there. He had offered for you to be able to run a funny car over there if you want. And so I said to Evan, I said, the only way I'm going to do that is if I can call all the shots. In other words, we'll race under Don's umbrella, but I got to manage my team, because for me, winning is about culture. And I wanted to make sure that we had the right culture, even though it was under Don's umbrella. And Don's culture is obviously a great culture. It's just not my culture.
Right.
And my culture is different. It has my fingerprints on it. It's who I am. And so we made that agreement with Don. And so that was the difference. Dell was running his whole thing, but I wanted to run it. And under Don's deal, I had the license to be able to run my own show within Don's umbrella. And so once I got there, we started doing that. But one of my rules were that, you know, like Don, I didn't want him talking to my team just because Don had a different approach than me. And obviously, who can argue with Don's approach?
Right.
Tons of championships, right? And Don makes tons of money, and he's a very successful guy, and I admire him tremendously.
Right.
But just because of all that doesn't mean that we're not different, right? Like, I'm different than Don, and my approach is different. And so a couple of times, whatever, you know, he was talking to my crew chiefs, he was talking to Brian and Mark, and I didn't want him to really do that. And so there was a little friction there towards the end. And so I just decided that I need to have my own team. Mm-hmm. And that's how I asked Evan. That's why I asked Evan if he would sponsor us to have our own team. And so Don worked with us, sold us all the parts and pieces and equipment. And, you know, we just went on and we started our own team. And what was really important to me was the culture. I used to write these kind of letters to the team. It's called Mental Torque, which would just talk about, you know, what we're thinking about mentally and why we should be a championship team. And we sucked the year before. I mean, I was a terrible driver. Honestly, I was not good. I had to learn how to become a good driver, and I learned, and I became a better driver. I wouldn't say I was a great driver, but I was good enough. I learned through that whole process. Frank Hawley, I worked with him. He taught me a lot. And then Brian and Mark, obviously, we all worked together. And, you know, and so I had that race team in 2007. And like I said, together, we built a real solid brotherhood, a winning culture. Then that year, at the end of the year, we renewed with Torco, but then they had a problem. They were no longer in business. And so we partnered up with Roger Burgess, and we were running two cars. We were running my funny car, and we were running Melanie Troxel's car. But my car, I only wanted to race part-time. I just didn't want to do it full-time anymore. And the decision was made to do that because my kids were getting older, and I felt like I was missing too much time with them. Justin was playing on the football team. I didn't want to miss his games. I was flying like back and forth to his games. And my daughter, there were critical years in my kids as they were growing up, and I just didn't want to miss those things. So I decided to kind of take a step back and just race part-time, but have a full-time team. I wanted my team to be full-time. Well, you know, eventually what wound up happening was, you know, the whole recession, the Great Recession happened. You know, right. You want me to go into this now, right? I'm assuming because you want me to tell you the whole.
Well, yeah, and just the other part too is the Pro Mod team.
Oh yes, I'm sorry, I never addressed that. I should have addressed that. So at that time, I had told my Pro Mod guys I'm not going to walk away from Pro Mod. So I raced Pro Mod and funny car. And let me tell you, Pro Mod was a whole different animal than funny car. And there was many times that although I was driving both, I was not good at both because of that. I would have the Pro Mod up on two wheels and the wrong two wheels. And and it was very, 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 very difficult to switch back and forth. But I wanted the Pro Mod team to continue. So the Pro Mod team did continue. And I wound up having a driver in the car. So I still owned the Pro Mod team and I had the funny car team. And Chuck was still running everything and my guys were still there and it was still the same thing. So yeah, the Pro Mod team continued on through as the funny car team did.
Gotcha.
And then, kind of when the recession hit, we had trouble with the mortgage industry was annihilated and we had trouble. So I wound up selling the team to Roger Burgess and he took it from there. And the Pro Mod team, we just wound down at that point, which was kind of late 2008, mid to late 2008. But then at the end of 2008, Burgess, for whatever reason, decided to fire the whole team, the whole funny car team. And I was really upset about that because Brian and Mark, those guys mean a lot to me. I mean, today they're like blood for me. They're my family. And what wound up happening was I got a phone call from Tim Buckley and he said, look, I want to sell my Top Fuel team. I have to sell it. And I think you'd be a good owner. Do you want to buy it? And that was Antron's team. And at that time, Antron had only run 1 year. And so long story made short, just to put it all together, I basically made the decision that, okay, I want to do this because I want to bring back my old team. And the one contingency was to get Mako to be able to go along with it. Oh, I lost you for a second. Sorry. To get Mako to be able to go. No, I got you now. Was to get Mako to be able to go along with it. And I flew to Mako and I remember speaking to them. And this is a good lesson for everybody to learn that's listening to this if you want to have a sponsor. I flew to their headquarters and when I sat in there, I met with their whole board. And so I said, okay, I want to buy this team. And so, of course, their marketing guy, he said, well, what makes you think, you know how to run a Top Fuel team, blah, blah, blah. I said, don't worry. I know how to be successful. Don't worry about winning on the racetrack. We're going to win on the racetrack. First thing I'm going to do is fire the whole team, except for Antron Brown. I'm going to keep you. Said, what? Fire the whole team? You can't do that. We finished 5th last year. I said, well, 5th sucks. So I don't want to finish 5th. And he said, well, what makes you think you can finish better than that? I said, because I know I can. I'm going to bring in my team. He said, well, who's your team? I said, my funny car team. Brian Karate, Mark Oswald, this and that. Not that their team's not good, but it's going to be my team. I'm bringing in my team. So he said, that's a non-starter, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, look, it's going to be my team. So it has to be that way. Let's table that for a second. What do you really want out of this? And I looked at the CEO, Tim Willis. I said to him, what do you really want out of this? I mean, the truth is, what do you want out of racing? So, of course, John Torok, the marketing guy, he goes, well, we want to win races. And then the CEO goes, we want to sell franchises. I said, that's the answer.
Right.
We want to sell franchises. I said, okay. So winning races, don't worry about that. I'll do that. Selling franchises, I get that done too. I'll do that better than anybody you've ever sponsored. I guarantee it. So they said, well, what makes you say that? I said, I promise you I'm going to do that. I will sell franchises and we will win races, but it's my team and I'm going to keep. And they said, well, if you're going to fire the team, then we don't know. I said, well, think about whatever you want to do, but I'm not buying the team unless that's what you do. And I remember calling Brian Karate and he thought I was crazy for doing that. Anyway, long story made short, Mako contacted me. I mean, I'm not talking out of school here. You're talking about 14 years ago. And Mako contacted me and said, okay, you know what, Mike? Put your mouth where your money where your mouth is. They said, we're going to cut your sponsorship down by X.
Oh, wow.
It was about 20%. It was a lot of money. Okay. And we're going to cut your deal from 3 years to 1 year. Let's see you win races and let's see you sell franchises. And if you do, we'll reinstate all that and extend your deal for 3 years. I said, deal.
Right.
Well, you got to back up your talk.
Right.
And so what I did was I took part of that racing budget, right? First of all, I went in, I fired the whole team, which was a whole nother thing. That wasn't very popular for me. People were not happy with me. And I brought in Mark and I remember speaking to, and Brian, I remember speaking to Antron, and Antron said, what are you doing? He fired the whole team. I said to him, I sat him down, ask Antron this. I sat him down. I said, Antron, listen to me. I own the team now. I said, I'm sorry, I own the team. He said, what? I said, yeah. I said, I just want you to know one thing. You're going to be a world champion. It's a guarantee. take a deep breath. You're going to be a world champion, but I'm firing your whole team today, right now. I just literally flew into Indy and walked in and did that. And all my guys were waiting outside.
Oh,
And I hated to do that, but I had to. It's what I had to do. And the rest, you can see what happened with Antron. But what wound up happening was, just as for people to learn, I took part of that market, that sponsorship budget from Matco, and I created TV commercials, and I ran them every time we were at a race.
oh
And
wow.
the TV commercials would basically fire your boss and become a Matco Tools franchise holder. And I set it up. I'm a marketing guy. I set it up so phone calls were coming in. They sold more franchises, and they won more races and before the countdown than they ever did before with any other team.
Wow.
They came actually to me to say this was the best experience. They absolutely love the whole thing, Matco, and they want to extend. But then because of the mortgage crisis, I said, you know what? I don't have the head for it. And they begged me to stay. They offered me more money even than the original money. They loved me as an owner and they loved everything we were doing. But I said no, and I actually sold it back. I sold it to Schumacher, who was actually competing with me at the time originally. And Schumacher took it from there. And you can see how good that team's been. And they've been together all these years.
Yeah.
And they're an amazing team. And by the way, without them, Justin would not be where he is. You know, Justin licensed in their car. Antron tutors him to this day. I mean, he role models Antron. And Antron has just been, and Mark and Brian have just been incredible with mentoring Justin and getting him to where he is. I mean, no secret, Justin has a great team right now with Mike Green and Dustin Davis, and they're just all of them. I mean, their whole team is just a great team. But my original team is what helped us to get to this point. I don't think Mike Green takes a chance on us if Brian doesn't say, take the chance. And that's how I think we actually got Mike Green. Yeah. Yep.
Nice. Well, talk about that transition now of being
You froze.
I was saying talk the transition of becoming a Top Fuel dad.
Yeah. So it's So how do I explain this? It's night and day. It's like way better. I mean, first of all, I never expected Justin to want to race cars. You know, never. He was always sticking ball sports. Second, I love it. There's nothing that is more rewarding for a parent than to see their kid do something that they love, whether they're winning or losing. I mean, of course, we like it better when they're winning, but to see your kid do something that they're passionate about and they love is so much more rewarding than doing it yourself. And people keep asking me, Mike, when are you going to get back in the car? Let me tell you, here's my bet. You ready? And I know that plenty of people are going to be talking shit on the internet after this, but I can get in any funny car right now. I can guarantee you, I can get in it, round one eliminations, get in the car, do a burnout, back up, stage it, have a good light, and drive right down the groove. No problem. I can drive the car. I know that. I love these cars. You know, I love driving them, but I don't love it as much as I love watching my son live his dream. And it's not only that, it's not only the race car. He majored in business. He loves business. And he's been so instrumental in the business side of racing, which has to exist in a very vibrant way. You have to have vibrant business connections, experience, ongoing business vehicles to earn money in order to have a successful team, because to have a successful team, it takes a lot of money. And the first thing that you want for your team is security. You want your crew chiefs and you want your crew to know that, one, you're in it for the long haul, and two, you're going to be well funded so that they can plan their lives and not have to worry about where their job is going to be. And so that's how you build a cohesive team. And the best culture, in my mind, is when you started on with a foundation of security, where and that's why sponsorship is so important. And that's where I think Justin's been really excelling. I mean, he's excelling as a driver, and I'm very, very proud of him in that regard. But he's also excelling really in representing sponsors and putting business deals together. He's very, Justin is, when you get to know him, you get to know him better. You see he's extraordinarily, really authentic. He just, what you see is what you got, you know, and he's not going to change who he is for anybody. He is who he is. And, but he's very grateful for things, and he will outwork anybody I know at every level, whether it's to drive the car, you know, racing and working on his technique, or to raise money, or in his commitment. If he's got a sponsor and he's made a promise, he's going to make sure he delivers. Like, he's going to get them an ROI, period. He's going to learn all about their business, and he's not just going to throw out a few shout outs. You know, he'll fly here, fly there, talk to people. Look, I will tell you right now, Justin cold calls during the week. He cold calls on behalf of sponsors to get them business, to make sure they have an ROI, so that because he wants to make sure that they're happy and that they're going to be continuing on the team.
Gotcha. Well, from a business standpoint, a lot of times people will put their business in conflict with their family, or their racing in conflict with their family. You know, one of the things of just, you know, being in your apartment, like noticing immediately, like your relationship with your family, how you guys talk to each other, like how much love is there. Actually, I guess that's the prompt. Just say whatever comes up for you.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's not, look, you know, everybody kind of has a different way of living their life, you know, and different things that are important to them. And nobody's right and nobody's wrong, right? Everybody just has a different view on things. And so everybody has a different truth. That's the reality of it. And in my world, you know, my family is first and foremost to me. You know, they're most important. And so, like, my wife and I, we have this saying, and I know other families do too: we can only be as happy as our unhappiest kid. Like, you know, and so it's really important to us that our kids are happy, and that we're happy with each other, that we're peaceful. I think my wife and I have had maybe 5 arguments in 32 years of being married. We just don't argue, because it's just not worth it. And so the method here for me is kind of the same as it is in any relationship, whether it's with your race team or with a business. It's give. So our relationships are kind of fall into that. We're give. Like, we can, you know, I want to give to my wife, whether that's time or whether that's money or whether that's gift or whatever, it doesn't matter. And my wife wants to give to me. And so when you have that circle of giving, it works. And same thing with my kids. But if you get it where it's give take, where I want to give and they want to take, right, that won't work. And so there are relationships that are like give that are really successful for a long time. There are relationships that are give take. Like, so as much as the giver will give, the taker will take. And then there's relationships that are take, where both people get together and they just take what they can from the relationship. Right. And so the first relationships last virtually forever. And the second relationships last very short period. I shouldn't say very short, but not long, and they're not enjoyable. And the third relationships break apart quickly. And right. So when you ask me about that, that's my race team relationships. It's the same way with the race team, whether it's Mike Green and Tommy and Greg and Justin and Jeff and Ryan and all these guys. They're just Ray, Sharon, Mike, Austin. They're the best. They just give. Everybody wants to give the credit and take the blame. You know what I mean? Yeah. And same thing with my relationships with Mark and Brian and Antron. We all just giving to each other, not worried about who's taking the credit. It's just give. And so that's why my relationship with Antron, Brian, and Mark, it's transcended how many different things. It's 14 years long, and it'll be going on, God willing, for the rest of my life. And so that's where I think people need to learn about, you know, the give foundation in relationships, not only personal, but professional. If you want to have a race team, you're going to need money. And if you want to have money, unless you're going to make it yourself, you're going to need a sponsor. And it's going to be about give with that sponsor. If that sponsor is going to give you their investment, you're going to have to make sure that you give them back a return on it. Right. And the minute that you think that you don't have to, you're going to lose them.
Right.
You're going to lose them. You have to make it your goal to make sure that when that sponsor invests in you, that you identify exactly what it is they want out of that investment, and then you have to over deliver on it. Figure a way to do it. Think outside of the box, like you said, which was very smart, and figure out a way to do it. Like I said, the $2 million check idea, right? When people say there's no way to do it, I tell them, if I give you $2 million, can you figure it out? They say yes. I say, okay, then there's a way.
Then there's
Figure
a way.
it out.
Yeah.
Same example here.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Well, the way that we end the show is we do. I think we figured there's like 12 questions here. We got 12 rounds. It's called Put Up Your Duke. So it's a lightning round. We got 12 questions. We try to keep the answers to 1 minute, but that's
Okay,
what we try.
1 minute, no problem.
All
I'll
right,
keep it to
cool.
1 minute.
What's that?
I'll keep it to 1 minute. I'm sorry if I've talked too much. I'll keep it to 1
Oh
minute.
no. But this is you were perfect up until now. This is the rules for the next 12 questions.
So
So
the next round, you got it.
the first 4 of them is just a SWOT analysis of the industry. So and you can talk about the anti-trade, the industry, drag racing as a general entertainment, however you want to put it. But we'll start with the strengths. What do you see as the strengths?
The strengths of racing. Well, first of all, it's different. It's different than your typical baseball. And my computer went off for a second. Sorry about that. Hold on a second. Just fix this. Then your different game. But again, it's entertainment. It's great for the family. It's clean. It's wholesome. And people who get involved in racing love it. So, it's a great diversion for the younger generation from some of the problems that we're seeing in the younger generation with drugs and alcohol and these kinds of things. When you take kids and you put them into these junior dragsters, they get better grades. They go to school on time. They get disciplined. They learn all of the things that a good sport gives you. So I think that's, like a real big positive for racing.
How about a weakness or the weakness?
The weakness for racing is, I think we're stuck. I think we're just not willing to put ourselves out there and evolve at the same rate that the world is evolving. We need to evolve more. We need to. And you know what? There are some guys out there like Wes Buck. I love what he's doing. I do, with these mega shootouts and stuff like this. I think it's great. But we need more of that. And I'm ready to lead the way to do that. I mean, we do that internally on our race team, and that's how we get sponsors. You need to evolve. You need to look at things different. You can't be iPhone 1 your whole life. You eventually got to become iPhone 14, 15, 16, 17, and you can't be scared to step out and do it. Drag racing needs to do that.
Yeah. Well, the next 2 questions are opportunity and threat, but I could probably ask you that as the same question. But what are the opportunities? What are the threats?
Here you go. It's very simple. The threat is that real estate there's a shortage of real estate in this country, and the threat is that, just like that happened at Bandamere, you're going to get a real estate developer that's going to come along and just buy out the track owner, and then everybody's mad at the track owner. But the problem is, we didn't take care of the threat. That's the threat. We didn't take care of the opportunity side, which was maybe bring gambling into racing, or do something different where you're going to have more fans, and the track operators are able to make more money, and the drivers are able to make more money, and the race teams are able to make more money. Make it more lucrative. We have to make a commitment to doing that and focus on doing that and take chances on doing that. It's okay to fail, but it's okay to be disappointed, but to do nothing is not okay. I'm sorry. We can't just keep doing the same thing, over and over again.
How about the most overrated part of being Mike Ashley?
The most overrated part of being Mike Ashley. Let me see. What's the most overrated part? Well, I think the whole Mike Ashley thing is retired. I think right now I'm Justin Ashley's dad, and I'm very happy to be. The overrated part about being Mike Ashley is I have a lot of pressure all the time, because I always want to make sure everything's going well for everybody. If I'm answering truthfully, I'm always worried about Justin, about the sponsors. I'm always worried about my family. That's kind of the overrated part.
How about most underrated?
So what's the most underrated? You know what? I don't know. I think sometimes people don't realize how much I really just generally do care about people. I do. I generally will sit down with people genuinely and really care. I've sat with you and really care about what's going on in their lives. And I know I can make a difference. I've been through a lot in my life, a lot of ups, a lot of downs. And, I've seen a lot of things. And, that experience has taught me how to become a better person and to grow. And sometimes I think I can help people grow, but sometimes it's hard. People just don't want to hear it. They want to stay in just kind of the way they are.
Biggest mental hurdle?
Biggest mental hurdle. That's a good one. I got to really think about that because I try and eliminate those. I guess maybe, I don't know what my mental hurdle is. I mean, it sounds a little kind of not right, but maybe my biggest mental hurdle is my refusal to accept that, like, I'm like 58 years old on Sunday.
Oh, no way.
Like,
Happy birthday.
Yeah, I'm going to be 58 on Sunday. It's like I still think I should be able to run X amount of miles, do X amount of exercise, get on a flight, run here, run there, negotiate a deal, come back, put something together. I don't know. I think that might be
and not stretch.
and the other thing is, you know what? I can't stand losing. I'll be honest with you, anything without learning from it. So that's probably something mental for me. Like, I have to win no matter what, even if it means that I have to suffer, sacrifice, whatever, in a proper spiritually aligned way. I'm a very spiritual person. I have to win. And so I got to learn. That's one thing for me that probably is a little bit stressful, is that, I've got to always make sure I learn from losses and to make sure that I get to the point when I win. But I am patient. I don't have to win every single thing by a certain time, but at the end, I've got to come out on top.
Gotcha. What's one thing that you have to say to the people that came before you?
What do you mean by that? The people that came before me?
Just the racers or the fans or just the business people that came before you.
Before I came around, the people that are first coming up.
No, but before you came around. We'll do both. Before you came around, and then we'll talk about the people following.
So the people before I came around, here's what I have to say to them. Thank you. Thank you for giving me NHRA and PDRA and anything that has to do with drag racing, because it has been an extraordinary part of my life, a blessing that I can't even put into words. It's a brotherhood. I have friends and brothers and family and people. It's a level of enjoyment that I remember telling my dad, I only wish, because he couldn't understand why I liked racing, I only wish that you could enjoy something as much as I enjoy racing. And so to all the people before me who set that pathway for me, thank you. I'm grateful for that.
How about to the people coming up behind you?
The people coming up behind me, take it all in. I have this saying, it's win the day. So, people so worried about what happened last week, what's going to happen in the future. The only thing that you really have is right now. That's the only thing you really have. And even in the future, that's the only thing you're going to have is right now. And it's just going to be then. So focus on the now. Enjoy. Just winning the day means having the best possible day you can for yourself in every way. Enjoy your life, live your life. And if you're involved in racing, take it all in and enjoy it, because before you know it, time goes fast. So, racing it's the best sport out there in my mind.
Yeah. And the last question is the last thing you have to say to your peers.
My peers. What do I say to my peers? I say to my peers, I have the highest degree of respect for my peers. We're all different. You may not love everything I do. I might not love everything you do. You might not think about me a certain way. I think about you a certain way. But at the end of the day, you're out there doing your thing, and I respect you. And I think that's what we need in this world. I think we just need to respect each other. We need to listen to each other. There's no way that no one person knows it all. We all just know a little bit, so little compared to what's to be known out there. And so I think it's important to have an open mind. And to my peers, I say, look, thank you for the ability to learn from you. I hope you'll learn from me, and I hope together we can make our sport and even the world a better place.
Awesome. Well, that's it, man. That's our whole podcast. It was a blessing to have you. Well, one, it's a blessing to know you. It's a blessing to have you on the show.
Thank you. Well,
And I can't wait for the blessing that the show is for the racing community. So thank you so much.
That. It's been an honor to be on here, Jason. I know what you're doing. And I think people who are smart, they hire people like you. Somebody like you has a lot of experience who can help them to grow and learn and uncover things about themselves and about the world that may not even know about, right? Like that, we see that all the time. So, I think having a coach, what's more important? What's a better investment than making an investment in yourself? Nothing. Because everything comes from you. And so having a coach like you, I think I'm fortunate to be able to be interviewed on your show, but I think anybody who comes your way, they should make that investment in themselves and be mentored and coached by you.
Man,
so thank you.
Yeah, I love you saying that, man. Well, thank you so much. And thank you guys for joining us today on the show. And thank you to our executive producer, JT Murder Tundra Hudson. And we'll be back every week, new guests every week. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Have a great day, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.